Hey everyone, this is Jordan Romano, and welcome to the Phillies Show.
Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zolecki. How's everybody doing? The Phillies Show, brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. It's Thursday, January 16th, 2025. I know everybody is like super hyper-focused on the Eagles-Rams game on Sunday, as you should be, but Phillies pitchers and catchers are going to have their first official workout at Carpenter Complex in Clearwater, Florida on February 12th. That's less than a month away. So you're soon going to be seeing images of Zack Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suárez, Matt Strahm, or Ryan Kirkring on the mound again. You're going to see Andrew Painter for the first time in a long time. And you're going to see newcomers like Jesús Luzardo, Jordan Romano, Joe Ross. Who better to talk about all of these guys than Phillies pitching coach Caleb Cotham? Caleb is entering his 5th season with the Phillies. We asked him about what makes Zack Wheeler perhaps the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. Can this rotation be the best rotation in Major League Baseball? How does this bullpen handle the losses of Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estévez? When could we see Andrew Painter? Why do you like the guy so much? And much more. Here he is, Caleb Cotham. Caleb, thanks for coming on the Philly Show, man. We really appreciate it. How are you doing? How are the holidays? Your first holidays as a new dad. What's that like?
Yes.
Fun?
It's something. I mean, a lot of firsts. So it's
Yeah.
You know, way different than a playoff game, but it's kind of like you have a big calling. You figure it out that, you know, this whole thing's bigger than you. And yeah, it was really cool. First Thanksgiving, first Christmas. So it's been fun, but I definitely had the itch to get to Florida and get with the boys.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of family members showing up for this first one, or did you bounce around, or how did it work?
Yeah, all our families right here, right out greater Nashville area. So we didn't do much. We did a small trip to New York right after the New Year, but yeah, all our holidays are right here, Nashville. We're in Gordonsville, Tennessee, so it's a small town outside of Nashville. Yeah, pretty low key.
Well, I imagine as the Phillies pitching coach, you got the itch, especially like right before Christmas when you find out that the Phillies traded for Jesús Luzardo to kind of complete that rotation, which, I mean, a lot of people are saying, could it be the best in baseball along with the Dodgers and the Mariners in the conversation? You got Jordan Romano, you got Joe Ross. What's your general excitement about those newcomers as camp opens in less than a month?
Yeah, I mean, we added two or three. I mean, all the guys, they're veteran presence, so they know. And talking to them, it's like you're not trying to teach them, and like there's not big changes. It's more just getting to know them. And you know, most of the time when we're doing stuff with guys, it's getting to know them, and it's all these small things. So, you know, I've always loved watching Luzardo, Ross, and Romano. Love watching them pitch. It's just there's a feeling of watching guys pitch where you say like, yeah, those guys can pitch in Philadelphia, because it is different. I mean, I think a lot of guys, and maybe we overblow that because if you're good, I think you can pitch anywhere, but it is different. You got to be made of something. You got to have a little something, but. You know, Luzardo pitching in that wild card series, he didn't bat an eye. He came out, he was really good. And Romano, obviously, he's one of the best if he's healthy and doing what he's capable of doing. And really excited about Joe Ross. I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff that he was working on right at the time that we got him that, you know, we've had good conversations. So excited. I mean, we love good pitchers. We'll never have enough pitching. So you can never have enough. I think we've added quality guys. And yeah, I mean, whether or not we're the best rotation doesn't really concern me. I don't think it concerns our guys, but, you know, proud of what we've done the last couple of years and the health and, you know, we're added some guys that they stay healthy. They're really good. So that's a big focus this off season. Will be a focus this spring, is just to build them up and keep them. We're bumpers in the bowling alley. Just get them to hit the pins. The first pin we got to hit is get north out of spring training.
Right. Do you, for fans that might not know, I mean, you're pretty involved, right? In the process before a free agent signing, maybe during a trade, they pick your brain a lot. I mean, how involved are you? Can you kind of get into some of that a little bit in terms of the Luzardo trade talks and Romano and Ross and whatnot?
Yeah. Some of them, you know, we have a really good team in the front office, and some of them we do. Dave runs a really good pro scout meeting where we get the input of all the pro scouts, and you know, myself, Topper, Kevin, we're giving take on just really collaborating and spending time with our scouts on what we value and how we see it. So we go through a big exercise of that, like that starts it out so we can maybe not have to do as much one-off. But yeah, I mean, these big tickets, there's definitely conversations. Ever since COVID, there's a ton of Zoom calls, and you got to kind of recruit because it's competitive. So we do a lot of that. We take pride in preparing for Zoom calls to teach them about who we are and how we do it and what it means to be a pitcher in Philadelphia and what we can offer. Maybe some things we see in their delivery or their stuff, or kind of a really base level plan, but just getting to know them and seeing if it's a good fit, because these guys also, it's a huge decision for them. And,
right.
If it's not a philosophical fit, it might not be a good fit, no matter if the pitcher's great or not. If it doesn't jive. But, we do pride ourselves on not really having a one philosophy. If there is one, it's winning. It's winning championships. So it's what do you want? And we have the tools and resources to do it. So it's a group effort, and I am involved a lot on some of them. Some of them, it kind of happens out of nowhere, and it's, you're making the phone call after it happens. But either way, we like good pitchers.
Right.
Yeah.
Caleb, you got a really good one in Zack Wheeler. Obviously, I was watching Dan Plesac the other day on the Major League MLB Network, and he called him the perfect pitcher. And I wanted to get your reaction to that, but also ask you about your relationship with Zack, because he has mentioned how much his relationship with you means, and how you've helped and your staff and your resources have helped him take his game to another level post New York. And I even had a conversation with his dad a couple of years ago where he looked at me and said he loves the pitching coach. So, just playing off the perfect pitcher and your relationship and how you've helped him get to another level. I'd love to hear about that. Yeah, I mean,
I think time with someone is a huge piece. So this will be the 5th year. So I think there's all these cool things, and all the data, the analytics, all these things we can do. I think time is important, like relationships and trust. So I feel like I can truly speak my mind and give Zack the truth, and he thinks, and I know he knows he can give me the truth, and he will, especially if I take a mound visit at the wrong time.
What's that like?
I think you've seen, you probably have seen the visit in Cincinnati early this year where I got to the top step and I kind of glance up and he's giving it to me. I'm like, okay, all right. But I rarely go out because I don't have to, because like he's incredible. And I've talked about Zack a bunch of different ways in this offseason. When people ask, because that is the question a lot of people want to ask me, it's like, what's he like? How does he do it? And I'm like, if you really think and watch what he does, there's not really a whole lot of things that are fancy. It's I would say like a very vanilla like plan. Like he's not throwing his fastball to a ton of spots. He's doing a couple things with his fastballs. He has 2 fastballs, and he's doing predominantly one thing with his 2-seam and predominantly one thing with his 4-seam. It's glove side and it's arm side with his sinker. But he's really good at doing that. And he's really good at building pitches around that to build an arsenal that's very complex for a hitter to solve. So he's very simple with his plan. His pitches are good. Like he has velocity, he has movement. But it's the beauty of building a foundation of fastball command, potentially having 2 fastballs as a starter. And when I say command, he's commanding his plan as well. It's very simple. So he can build the rest of his, call it his ecosystem or his arsenal around that, so that hitters have a really tough time solving it. It's like, well, just sit on the sinker in. It's like, okay, well, they'll throw fastballs away, 4-seams. Mm-hmm. And if he can pair the new sweeper with the 2-seam in to protect that side of the plate. But he's a really good example. He's the best example. And whether he's the best or not, I think he's the best. I think the durability, the ability to take the ball, big games, stuff, consistency, he's unmatched for me. And I'm biased, but I don't think I'm biased by that much.
Right.
And But it's just a really good example of someone that doesn't really want to make it fancy. We keep it simple. He wants to know certain things, knows himself very intimately, and he loves to compete. He loves like getting after hitters. And, he's a student of the game, and he watches the game. When he's not pitching, he's paying attention, whether that's inside, whether that's on the bench, whether that's on the top step right behind me. He's watching things. And I think that's something I've talked to a lot of our young pitchers about, is when you're watching the game, watch it, think, you can get reps. And that's what all the best have always talked about. I remember Joey Votto telling me a story about Greinke, and he's like, he was one of the last guys that I saw that stood on the top step or stood on the rail and watched the game. And I remember him telling me that in 2019. I'm like, wow, okay. So I started watching that. And it's interesting. But that's Zack. He's paying attention. So he's a great pitcher. His best skill set is he's just very consistent with a lot of different pieces of his day. I've learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot of what not to say, and how to keep things simple and refined. But yeah, it's everyone wants to know the secret of how he's so good. And it's like, well, if you watch it, he's got good pitches, and he does one thing with his sinker for the most part, just one. And then this past year, he started doing it a little bit on his glove side with 2 strikes. But, you can be one of the best doing one thing with one pitch, but have a couple other pitches that, play nice with them. So, yeah, that's my spiel on Zack. I mean, I could talk hours on him. He's a special human.
Caleb, you hit on something that struck a chord with me, and it was about the fastball command, the sinker command, the 4-seam command. In a day and an age where spin rate and velocity and deception and stuff like that are really important. Can you talk about the importance of fastball command just in general, and how that makes pitchers so much more effective?
Yeah, I was talking to one of our younger pitchers, and we're talking about what he's working on, and I'm working on throwing my fastball to a couple spots. So what we really like to talk about is, and I'm stealing this from Derek Johnson, it's something that I heard at Vanderbilt too, but it's something that Zack, when he practices, Zack talks about his triangle. Like, I want to practice my triangle. So we kind of pitch in lines, diamonds, and triangles is kind of the mindset. So in lines, that's 2 spots. Typically it's up and in, down and away. Let's say those are 2 spots in my fastball. And then I can, instead of, a lot of people are like, well, I need to add a 3rd spot with my fastball. I'd make the case, it's really hard to command 3 spots. It's really hard to truly command 1 spot. But if we can get to 2, that's good. And really thinking about, instead of asking more and more and more of the precision of one pitch, can we build a second pitch, now in this case, a second fastball, to create that triangle? Or ideally, final form, where Aaron Nola's and the Zack Wheelers, they're kind of in this diamond where there's an expansion pitch. But think about it, where Zack would go, he's kind of going 4-seam up, 4-seam glove side, and he's completing his triangle with a 2-seam arm side. So he kind of works that triangle. And I think the command thing, what we see is command. We overestimate how much command we actually have of the pitches, because pitches that move a lot are very good pitches. And that's a good thing for us. But by nature of a lot of movement, they're harder to command. It's harder to be really precise. Now, controlling the zone, commanding the count, commanding the at-bat, commanding my plan, making hitters deal, and I have that level of command. That's how I like talking about command with our guys. Is I want to command who I am and what I attempt to do to make the hitters deal with me. And going back to when I was talking to one of our younger pitchers, it's what's the hitting coach telling his hitter when he's coming up to the plate about you? And there's a difference in maybe hey, wait him out, get him down, and get underneath it, versus, hey, you're going to have to do something different because he's so good at this one spot. You got to figure out how to solve that. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, but we want guys coming up and you're doing something so specific that we can change pitches. But yeah, that's a fancy way of saying command matters and the ability, but it starts with 1 spot. I think guys jump to 3 spots, but we need to own 1, and we don't want to rent 3. I want you to own 1, and then let's work to own the second one. And then I'd love for the third one to be a different pitch that you can throw out of the same spot of one of those other two. That would be kind of how I think about it. But really, it's the hierarchy of needs for a pitcher is you need to throw strikes. So you need to control the zone, command the count, know when to throw it or attempt to throw it right down the middle, when to be on the edge, when to be out of the zone and in the zone. And how we think really command emerges from that. Like, I don't think there's a lot of guys that would, have good stuff, throw a bunch of strikes, not walk anyone, and someone leaves that game. They're probably saying, man, he had good command tonight. They don't know that he was actually trying to throw it right here, but it missed right here.
So one of the things I think that that I noticed, obviously you lost Brian Kaplan to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I know he was an important part of what you were doing pitching wise. He's been sort of quote unquote replaced. Mark Lowry now joins you as the assistant pitching coach. And I guess Casey Weathers is now the director of pitching, I guess, throughout the organization. Talk about the relationship of your group there. And obviously Cesar Ramos still on as the bullpen coach. Talk about the relationship of the four of you or five of you as you build this staff and prepare for game to game.
Yeah, obviously very happy for Cap, and we're gonna miss a lot. So we had to spend some time thinking about that exact question and how to kind of backfill that. So we've kind of set up where Casey's going to be more minor league focused. He's not going to be in the big leagues. So essentially, we've taken Cap's role in the major league portion. The assistant pitching coach, Mark's taken over, but he's going to continue to do a lot of the stuff he was doing, which is a lot of the advanced creation, the game planning packets, just a lot of the player plans. And, we do periodic updates throughout the year on, what did we want or what did we say we were going to do? What do we want change wise and how's it going? But Caesar's going to help a lot too. It's, you set a routine in place, and we don't do a whole lot of quote unquote game planning the other team, the hitter. Like, we need to know the most important things, but we've made a big bet in the last couple of years that, the more you just do what you do, and let's find out if that works. And we've just found that a lot of guys, we don't have to go much more than that. We might give a Matt Strom one note, a series. It's, hey, this guy needs to see a fastball down, that sometimes that bites us, but over a full season, it's really helped guys solidify what they do and making hitters deal with us. So I don't think a whole lot will change. We'll have to cover, some of the biomechanical pieces that Cap was doing. And we have another guy's named Anthony Brady. He was integral in building Driveline Baseball's biomechanics pipeline. He was with us last year. He's fantastic. He's a biomech by trade. He played. So he's going to take a little bit of an elevated role, and Caesar will do more like kind of some of that assistant role as well. Just the post game tracking. He'll take a little bit more of the reliever focus. Mark will take more of the starter focus to help me. And then Casey's truly like the director of minor league with Travis, and him and Hergy will kind of tag team that, with Casey being kind of the lead. But then it's really a two-headed monster, because Hergy's fantastic, and those two together, it's been really fun to see how they've already grown in the past month. I know Casey very well, so there's a little bit of nepotism. I was trying to stay out of the interview process as much as I could, but he's fantastic. He's very qualified, and it's been a really good thing. So it's it'll live and breathe. We'll figure it out as we go, but feel pretty good that we've got what we need covered, especially with taking care of the players.
Caleb, you were talking about your conversation with a young pitcher, and it reminds me of Ryan Kirkring, and the importance that Dave Dombrowski has mentioned in his continued development, and the belief that he's going to take a step forward. So kind of a couple of questions here, because there's a lot of questions about losing Jeff Hoffman, losing Carlos Estévez. How's the bullpen going to perform? You bring in Romano, who's coming off an injury. So I guess your confidence in his ability to bounce back, and then your confidence in Kirkring being able to take another step forward and kind of being that Hoffman-ish, Estévez-ish type of type of guy to kind of really make this bullpen continue to make it an elite unit.
Yeah, I mean, what Orion's done, it's been very impressive. Like the ability for a young guy to kind of navigate the big leagues and the workload. And he did a fantastic job last year of listening to his body and communicating. Like one of the biggest growth pieces for a reliever in the big leagues is like the balance between saying something and not saying something when you feel something to trainers, pitching coaches. And, you know, you don't want guys to not ever say anything or not be honest, but you don't want probably the guy that's like, yeah, I'm kind of sore. I need a day. So he navigated that really well. And I think we did a pretty good job of helping him, like know when to take a day, know when to maybe not play catch after a lot of workload. So I think he's kind of checked that box. I think the next step for him is, like I said, like he started throwing the 2-seam and it got pretty good, but can we get to where there is complete ownership of one spot with his 4-seam and 2-seam? And then if he does that, he's kind of completing his triangle with the backdoor 2-seam, which he kind of did because he's obviously very nasty. The sweeper is a fantastic pitch, but he's kind of similar to Wheeler without the curveball, without the split, and without the cutter. He's got this 2 fastball game with the sweeper. So he's kind of got this triangle working where when he runs into trouble, it's when he's not presenting to hitters that he could go ball to strike, essentially. So he's in the zone to in the zone. It's in the zone to out of zone, but the 2-seam kind of opens up a little bit for him, the ability to go ball to strike. So he makes them respect the outer half. So I think it's a lot of just call it the art of pitching, not necessarily the science. Now I think him, he's more of for us, let's understand why he throws hard, why his sweeper's good. Let's not have that go backwards, but he's a lot just adjustments in game, noticing things, hitter reactions, adding one little, call it trick to his arsenal that he can do to hitters. But really it's fastball command. It's fastball shape, the consistency of fastball shape. And if he does that, command typically emerges for him. But he's a good thinker. He's what you want. He's kind of and I mean this in the best way, he's a little bit of a dirtbag. Like he likes the ball and he likes those those sticky, hot situations, and he doesn't back down. He's a trash man. So I think he can do that role that Hoffman was, obviously fantastic at. And Kerkering got a lot of taste of that role in those spots, but he's just going to continue. And that's the evolution of a major league reliever. You got to go through this hierarchy, figure out how to go, wall to wall, beginning to end. And then it's like, now what? But he's hungry. He's a hungry kid. He wants to be really good.
That's good. And then what about Romano's ability to bounce back? You're pretty confident. I imagine you're confident in it, but why are you confident in his ability to kind of return as an elite level late inning guy?
Yeah. Don't have as much talking to him, and how he's talking about it makes me feel really good. But at this point, it's trusting kind of our strength and medical teams that have done the evaluations and talking to him, seeing him throw, hopefully see him throw here in a couple weeks, seen video, but, just kind of leaning on them, and they haven't let me down yet. Like our medical team and Paul and Morgan, they're fantastic. So there's a lot of trust, and, we'll see. He's in a great spot, and you never know. It's why you need as much pitching. I'm pretty bullish on him this year, and he looks great, feels great, and it's just one of those things where it's a day-to-day conversation. Let's figure out what's under the hood, and let's make sure we don't miss on it.
Sort of following up on the Kerkering thing, do you think at some point in his career he can be a everyday closer? I know that's not necessarily the game plan for Topper and how you guys go about it, but do you think that he can take the baseball in the 9th inning to get the last 3 outs at some point in his career?
For sure. Like that's an easy yes for me. If we define closer, like the ability to get the most important outs in a game, like he's there, I think. But we know that the 9th inning is different. There's something about knowing that this thing's trending towards this inning that I have, and it's on me, and like a field goal kicker in some ways. Like if you didn't lose the game, but everyone's going to say you lost the game for the team,
Right.
So I think he's made that way. His mindset is that way. Do I think he's there right now, maybe. You never know until it happens. But I think I would trust him in the biggest outs of any game next season for sure.
I from afar, I love his makeup. He looks like he's got something in his belly. We did some off the wall predictions going into the new year, and it really wasn't that off the wall. But I predicted that Kirkland's going to have 22 to 25 saves this year. Do you think I'm nuts?
We'll see.
Yeah.
One of the guys, like I'm super
he's capable of doing something like that. Yeah. I think he's that type of reliever. He's that type of pitcher.
I'm so interested. There's so many questions and players I want to talk about, but like I'm really interested in Ranger Suarez. I really like the guy. I think he's got a great personality. He's a good guy. Been fun watching him develop and become a quality major league pitcher. Last year was sort of like this tale of two seasons. He had the tight back, a little IL time. Wasn't the same guy late that he was early. What are you hearing about him right now in mid-January? A month before camp, and what are you kind of crystal balling for him in 2025?
He's doing great. I think last offseason was one of the not that he didn't do the work before, but he made it more important 2 years ago to come in very prepared, especially after the World Baseball Classic, where he's a guy. It's the yin and yang of being legitimately one of the best command guys on the planet, if not the best. Is that things come very easy to him. Pitching comes very easy to him. So it's kind of playing games with himself against himself to be better than he was the day before, because I'm not kidding. When he could roll out of bed at 9:30 in the morning on a day game, throw a side and hit 30 of 30 spots, and you'd watch it and you'd be like, that's the best side I've ever seen in my life. And Ranger be flipping the ball, laughing, running back in. He's just that guy. And it's very impressive, but it's how good do you want to be? So that's a lot of our conversations. To me, Ranger has the ability to be the best in baseball. And we saw that last year. We saw glimpses, but a lot of it's just the physicality and the workload management on our end. I think a really good marker for him is just, I want him to qualify for the Gold Glove. So that's step one. Like the qualification requirements aside, I agree or disagree, like he needs to qualify for the Gold Glove. And if that happens, he might win it, probably should win it. But then that equals a season that you've kind of gone the 3/4 of the way through the year with pretty consistent workload. Last year was, I think, it was very impressive to me because, he had the hamstring in the back, then a little bit of the shoulder, and then it kind of went up the body. Then it went up the body again. He threw the CG right after the hamstring happened. He just kind of got behind the 8 ball, but he did a really nice job of staying ready for, half a year. He's dealing with things almost daily, and he's the best pitcher in baseball. So I think he got a taste of what being the best felt like. And then the bar is kind of raised now. So I fully expect that version of Ranger to show up. And when he's in that mode, when he's in, I say kind of how good can I be mode, and asking that question versus, let me just get back to what I was in 20, whatever year you want to pick. When he's in that mode and he's pushing himself, I would put him up against anybody. The ability to throw, just the problems he can ask hitters to try to solve. He can do anything. He can do anything with the baseball. So it's just getting him to stick there. And I think managing the workload maybe a little more strategically early in the year might make sense. It's again, the yin and yang, like the coach with him and us managing workload. It's guys just out. He can throw 7 innings and 50 pitches. Do you pull him? Those are the tough ones. It's really hard. And the guy doesn't want to get pulled. Maybe he should, maybe he shouldn't, but you're kind of like, it's this double vision, like today, but looking down the road and where do we want to be? I'd love for him to throw 200 innings. I really would. But how do we build those 200 innings in? Is that with the playoffs, without? I don't know if I know that answer, but I know Ranger's thinking that way. He wants to go start to finish. And, he's a very, very important piece for us.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I had the same questions as Jim did. I'm curious, do you think that he's changing up his overall plan of attack as far as his physicality is concerned, preparing himself for that 200 innings differently? I know he hasn't really gotten to the point where he's gotten there. So I would assume that is a goal of his as well.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things as a coach. It's the guys. He was legitimately the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
So it's like how do you kind of intervene on something you might see, like honoring the guy. And one of the things I can't live with myself if I'm ever too quick or we're too quick on some change or intervention that the guy's rolling. Like sometimes you kind of got to wait till you need to. And unfortunately, last year with Ranger, it happened quick, right? And looking back, us as a staff, looking at how he presented in the training room and taking something from that, like what did we miss? How do we not miss this moving forward? And then the work that Ranger had to do to stay ready and come back. I think that being part of his program now is like, that's the baseline. That's the cost of being great. So I think Ranger saw that, the game's one thing, but the stuff off the field, his routine has been elevated. So I think a lot of things he learned last year and we had to implement, some of the drills on the throwing side, some of the stuff in the training room, spending more time in the weight room, making sure the hamstring's good, the back, and everything just is working on the backside. I'm excited to see that be part of his everyday routine now. And it was, but it's been elevated. So I think that's where my head's at with it. And I wouldn't say there's anything fancy. It's just doing just a little more in a couple different areas and being quicker to like say, hey, we need to pull back on this or pull back an inning, add an inning. And then that'll help us with the workload. But it's tough. He gets, Topper always says it, like the danger, like the CGs now, because guys aren't doing those all the time. There's something about it that there's a cost, and it's tough to put your finger on it after those CGs. And we have guys that can go complete games a lot, so it's always a fluid, let's figure it out type conversation.
You mentioned Ranger being the best pitcher in baseball last year, and Andrew Painter's a guy who a lot of people say is the best pitching prospect in baseball, or certainly in the top 3. Can you explain to people who have not seen him pitch, the average Phillies fan, why you guys are so excited about his potential? What is it about Andrew Painter that makes him elite, that has Dave Dombrowski saying, we hope we could see him July-ish in a rotation that has all these elite level pitchers? And what do you think of the plan that you guys have set up for him?
Yeah, I think just checking the box, talking about Andy, like obviously there's tremendous stuff. There's tremendous velocity. And I'm just real on the plan, feel good with the plan. I mean, we're not going to rush a thing. So we have it built out like in theory in pencil for the whole season, whether that's in the big leagues, AAA, wherever that is, AA. We'll let kind of the performance and how he feels dictate that. But
sure.
He's kind of hit all his pieces. He's feeling good. I would say why I would be excited if I'm a Phillies fan is, and what I've been most impressed with in my time with Andy, which this offseason has been more, is just the aptitude for the game and the ability to like think very clear. Like you watch an interview, it's not some ramble buzzword. Like you listen to an interview, you can pick one from the fall league and you listen to it. It's like, that's someone that knows himself, knows exactly what the goal was of today. He knows if he did or didn't do it. There's in some ways, there's not emotion to this thing. It's here's what I'm going to do. And did I do it or not? And who do I need to help me get that done? So I think, you had lunch with him in Nashville, and, it's a big league conversation. The aptitude, the awareness is very high. And I think on top of his stuff, like he has one of the best abilities to land breaking balls in the zone that I've seen. And it's like Aaron Nola-esque. Just, it's easy. Like some guys, it's not as easy. You have to talk about where to start it. Do you aim where you want to finish it? Do you aim where you want to start it? For Andy, it's just I'm going to throw it for a strike here. And they're good breaking balls. So I think it's a young kid, but it's someone you talk to him, you ask him questions about what he does, it's going to be an easy answer. He's going to give you something that's clear and makes sense. And that might not sound fancy, but you ask some guys, hey, what do you do to righties? And it's going to be, we're always working towards that being really quick and easy for them to say, so their plan. But it's a guy that he understands himself very well, and he understands and he loves to compete. Like it's the equation's not fancy, but it's a really good starting point. But he's a special pitcher in a lot of different ways.
Following up on him, I saw him as a kid and watched him doing PFPs. You talk about his ability, just aside from the pitching piece. It just looks like he handles himself and holds himself in a totally different, more mature, athletic. Every part of his game seems to be pretty on point for such a young player.
Yeah, he can shorten the leg lift. He can, he has the ability. And when I say the maturity level, a lot of times shows up in the game, like you said, like they're doing a PFP group in spring training, and it just looks easy, right? The running game or controlling the running game just becomes easy because he notices the guy's getting a big lead and he just shortens up and throws a good pitch. Like it's just, he's playing the game a lot. Like he's not a guy that's really caught up in the numbers. Now, we've talked about understanding the numbers a little bit better because it can help you make adjustments in game. Like if this pitch, and especially in the big leagues, if this pitch isn't flying a certain way, we need to do a little bit of work understanding why. Maybe a cue comes out of it. But the game for him is fun. Like he likes playing the game. Some guys like playing practice. Some guys like doing, pitch design more than playing. Now, a lot of our guys, and it's something we talk about a lot, is like the goal of all this is to be good at the game. And what does that mean? To be a pitcher means to control the running game. It means to field your position because they're not high frequency things, but they're game winning things. If you field that ball and turn the double play, it's like, well, we shouldn't be practicing that. You only get like 8 comebackers a season. It's like, well, that could be 3 wins, right? On that play, you turn the double play. So it's taking pride in that. And it's just easy. It's easy for him. Like the game's slow.
So Caleb, is Mick Abel still on the map for you? How can he make that, next step? I mean, you talk about obviously command. It hasn't been there for him. How do you view him kind of through an organizational look?
I definitely think he's still in the mix. I think he's still young. I mean, he's. I don't want it to get it's easy for me to lose sight of just guys' ability to take the ball at the rate he has in AAA and the higher minors and do that consistently. Like that's a very valuable thing. And that's a tough thing to do. So I think I've said that to a lot of people. Like we can't lose the sight that whether it's been bad or he's struggled or it's been good, like the kid's taking the ball and he's thrown a bunch of innings. And that's not normal in minor leagues. So I think that's going to serve him. But I do think I've talked to Mick a lot this offseason. I think it's just time. It is time to take that next step. So like, what is that? I don't necessarily think it's control. Command. I think it's control. I think just knowing why things happen a little bit. But, a lot of the stuff that me and Mick have talked about is what does it look like to not have to try so hard? Because he's a worker. He's an over trier sometimes. And a lot of guys because they care, they want to be good. But what does it look like to kind of just let it come to you a little bit? And I think in that mode, he is more of a pitcher, less of a guy that's doing pitching and maybe a little too worried about his mechanics or what's going on in his delivery. It's like, what's the ball telling you? What's the hitter telling you? Because if you're in that mode a little bit more, it kind of helps you get out of yourself and helps you get wrapped up in the game. So I think that's the last piece. And, he's trying some different things. He's talking differently a little bit. But the talent's there. So it's not like this, we need to add this pitch or that pitch. It's just maybe a little bit different way of being, if that makes sense. Just because I've talked the same things I've talked about with Zach is kind of what I've talked about with Mick. It's, there's not a lot of things that me and Zack Wheeler talk about that's fancy or analytically driven. It's what do I do? How's it going? And what do I need to do more of, less of? And then the rest of it's like, how do I just get really good at getting them out? I don't really care how. I just want to get them out. And versus perfect command or the shape of my slider, or, I need to hit this percentage of curveballs in the zone, whatever, like just get them out. And that's really at the end of the day, when you get to the highest level, that's all that matters. You get them out, you'll stay here. You will.
How just wanted to ask you, how much communication do you have with JT on a daily basis, and how important is he to the entire pitching puzzle and what you guys try to achieve over, from spring training through the 162 for October?
Like right now or during the season?
Just the entire ball of wax. How important is he to the entire pitching program and the execution of the pitching program, the pitching staff?
I'd love to give him like deputy pitching coach. Deputize him. I mean, he's incredibly important. I couldn't do it without him. I'm very grateful. I've said it a bunch, like just very blessed that, him, Stubby, and Nappy, like there hasn't been a ton of catchers that, it's really hard when catchers are different catchers running through. I see it as it's more important than running through a bunch of different pitching coaches. So consistency just of JT being back there. But it's a huge part of our process. We do on the yin and yang of not giving the pitchers a whole lot from a game planning perspective means that we go a ton through the catcher and JT, and we ask a lot of him from a preparedness level. If we're talking day to day, there's a lot of conversations, but if we're talking in game, it's constant. I mean, we're talking every inning, me and JT, and mostly we're talking. I'm talking more to him than I am even the pitcher, especially with how certain guys like to set it up. But was texting him last night. He's down there. He caught Romano's pen, and he said he was giving him some cue on his slider that we've talked about, that our catchers can help. Catchers get a great perspective, and if they understand a little bit of the pitch design and analytic stuff, like that really helps the pitcher, because now they're the thing they shout, hey, how was that slider? Like now their information they send back to him is better. But he was telling me something like, man, you nailed it. Nice job. And it's just who he is. Like he really cares, and his level of preparedness it's tremendous. And he wants more. So we try to give him like updates on guys, and but also like keeping it pretty simple. It's like, hey, what's the one thing I got to remember on this guy? Hey, cutters, 2 strikes, not sweepers, or whatever. But his retention level's high, his preparation level's high, his care is high, and guys, he's a damn warrior. It's gonna be tough to pull him out from behind the plate. I'll tell you that.
He absolutely is that.
No doubt.
Well, Caleb, thanks a lot for the time, man. That was a lot of fun. A lot of people don't know. You talked about the relationships and stuff, and you mentioned Zack and his attitude and his mindset, and I can tell you, when Zack is speaking of you, I can tell the relationship is really tight, because Zack, I think I can say this, he doesn't suffer fools very well. So you kind of hinted at that, like, your conversations are pretty honest and open, and he speaks highly of you. So for fans kind of wondering what's going on the inside, I think that speaks a lot about you as a pitching coach and how you connect with these guys. So we'll see you in a couple weeks. It should be.
Yeah, can't wait.
Thank you again to Caleb for the time. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you enjoy the Phillies Show, don't forget to pick up a Phillies Show t-shirt. You can get that at thephilliesshow.com. They're made by 47 brand. It's a great t-shirt. Ruben, Jim, and I will be back next week. Thanks, everybody. The Phillies Show is brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Subscribe to the Phillies Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like us, give us a review. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and Threads. Find Ruben's analysis before, during, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show, and MLB Network. Find Jim at allphly.com. Find me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and MLB Network.